The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of Worldwide Digital Broadcasting Corporation.
Hot topics, food, fun, entertainment, and serious business. Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.
And we thank you folks for joining us. This is one of those shows that's about serious business. We have here Reuben De Silva. He is a candidate for Congress District 1, and he's run before. But this is the cool thing about Reuben. He is like a man of so many different talents. It's just really, really amazing. And I've just been so impressed with him ever since I met him. And so we're going to talk about his life, how he got into politics, what he does here in the community. Let me just run down the list of all the things he does.
Oh, she got a list going on.
I got a list. He's a teacher at Rancho High School. He's a veteran. He is a leader, and he is the Democrats' choice we're actually running for Democrat for U.S. District 1, but you're running as an independent.
No, I'm a Democrat.
Now you are a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I ran as an independent in the last race,
and
I can clear this up. We'll talk about exactly the importance of that.
Yeah. Well, let's start first of all by talking about you. How did you become Reuben De Silva? Talk about your family, right?
Reuben De Silva. Well, I was. I don't know when I was conceived now, but I know when I was born. All right, I was born on January 22nd, 1985. So my birthday is coming up, and maybe you can send a little birthday contribution to our campaign. We're asking for a small $20.18 because it'll be 2018. We'll definitely take that as a birthday,
shameless plug.
As a birthday present. Shameless plug. You got to throw that out there.
Yeah.
But I was actually born in India. My family immigrated here to the United States when I was a small child. I was about 2 years old, and we lived in New York City. And after moving to Las Vegas when I was 6 in 1991, this is where my family laid its real foundations.
Right.
And I've been living here since then. You know, I went to grad school out east, and I served in the Marine Corps. But other than that, this has really been my home. You know, I went to C.P. Squires Elementary School, J.E. Manch, went to Rancho High School. And, you know
that's how we've bonded because I went to Rancho too.
Rikki's a proud alumni, one of our famous alumni from Rancho. Went to the community college for my first 2 years, UNLV for my undergrad. You know, I went off to the East Coast, to the University of Pennsylvania, and to Yale University for my graduate studies, and now a teacher at Rancho High School.
Right.
You know, and so I've really been a community person, you know, all my life. And if you look at, where my life has been situated, it's been in the district that I'm running in.
Right.
And I'm very big on this notion of organic leadership, of organic representation.
Now, what does that mean?
It really means that the people who represent us should be of the people, and shouldn't be outside of the district. And there's a lot of I think it should be addressed. You know, there's a lot of district hopping, seat hopping, so on and so forth. It takes place in politics. You know, when I ran as an independent in the last race because I wasn't too happy with the political party system and how both parties endeavor in these sort of things. And I did well. You know, the most successful independent campaign, congressional campaign in the history of Nevada.
Let's talk about some of those numbers from that race, because when I was looking at that, I was really, really impressed that you did so well coming out of the gate. I mean, you got 13,000, almost 14,000 votes going up against Dina Titus, who only got 116,000. Sounds like a lot, but you got 13,000, 14,000 votes coming in as an independent.
Yeah, I was actually very amazed by that too.
Yeah.
Because you go in there trying to do the best that you can. You know, and the fact that I didn't have a political party backing me up. I wasn't a Republican or a Democrat or anything.
You didn't have this big war chest.
Didn't have no war chest, nothing. But what we saw was that we resonated with people. And for the most part, they were Democrats because I was running on a very progressive platform as an independent. And but we saw that we did well. It even blew my mind, you know, that so many people resonated with us. Again, I'm just a school teacher. This is the first time I'm running for Congress. I was 31 years old, you know, and I didn't really have any sort of organization there. But we built an organization. We built a team. We built a structure that was very unique. We've never seen anything like this in Nevada history. And I'm proud to have, been able to participate first and foremost in democracy, and especially in the way that we did. We knew that we would represent the district better than Dina Titus could ever represent that district. Because I'm from there, I'm an organic production of that district, and we're the future. And I think that simple message that, again, that we want to participate, we want to be involved, and we want to take a shot at this resonated with folks.
Right.
And we know that we're going to do better in the Democratic primary. We know that we can win this.
Right.
And if we do win this, it's going to be, again, an even bigger historic moment, but a movement in the right direction. Right. Again, I talked about organic leadership,
right.
Being of the district, being from the district. After this showing, there were many, big Democratic donors, a lot of leadership who sat down with me and said, look, Reuben, we want you to run, but we want you to run for a different seat. You may have to move. You may have to go to a different district. They were talking about Henderson. They were talking about, the far north. And again, I was like, I'm from this area.
Right.
I'm from North Las Vegas, the east side. It's District 1, Congressional District 1. Why would you want me to move out of my the world that I know so well, the world that I can represent so well, and run in a different district? But that's how, a lot of...
But that's actually fairly common.
It is common,
it's like
yeah.
Both parties, they want to get somebody elected.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you get elected, now you're in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So then you have a little bit more maybe clout.
Yeah.
And just recently I was at I helped moderate a panel that you set up,
mm-hmm.
and I want to talk to you about the small business panel, the town hall that you just had. But one of the things I thought was interesting about one of the statements a woman made at that
mm-hmm.
at that sort of group was that she said, why are you running against Dina Titus
mm-hmm.
when Dina has such, she already has such clout?
Mm-hmm.
If you defeat her, will we lose that clout?
Yeah.
I mean, is it going to undermine
mm-hmm.
our power in Congress? And you said,
I think it's there's clout, there's seniority there, but it's a wrong type of clout. I think the Democratic Party is moving into a different direction, and folks like Dina Titus and there's many other folks. I think that we need a change in leadership. I would like to see Nancy Pelosi replaced by somebody else who could again move this party into a different direction, move this country in a different direction. Right. So I think that's the old establishment, the old way of doing things. And there's a real moment now that we have to take up this and make an opportunity of this moment that we can actually have a new course for the Democratic Party, for the progressive movement, and we have to empower new voices, new people who could be a real, movement leaders, be weapons really against the other side. When you look at what I stand for, who I am. It's everything the Democratic Party needs at this moment. The Democratic Party needs somebody who can identify with the immigrant community because he is an immigrant. Right. I was undocumented in this country for many years, and you think I'm going to go over there and be a soft voice for immigrant reform? No, I'm going to be a warrior for immigration reform. The Democratic Party needs more veterans participating. The Republicans are always saying the Democrats don't love this country. The Democrats are not patriotic. The Democrats are folks who think that America is weak. No, I don't. I love this country. I love America so much. I think this is the greatest country in the world, and we have even a greater potential we can live up to. I received the Purple Heart. I went to Iraq. I fought even before I got my citizenship. I'm the sort of voice that they need to go up against those Republicans who say that Democrats aren't patriotic, Democrats don't love this country. What can they say to me? I have a bullet hole in my arm, even before I was a citizen. Right. So that's the sort of weapon I can be against them. You look at organic leadership we talked about, right? I'm a school teacher. I'm at the forefront of an education crisis. I live and breathe the issues that my kids deal with because I'm from there.
Right.
So I know what kind of issues their parents are faced with when they get laid off work, when they're living on $7.25 an hour minimum wage on 40-hour shifts. So again, it's that sort of a voice that I'm bringing. I'm not a millionaire, and that's true. Dina Titus is a millionaire. We have a plethora of millionaires in Congress. We don't have working folks. I'm a school teacher. I identify with the people differently, identify with the issues differently, and I can serve as a champion for many of the causes that the progressives and the Democrats say that they're about, but I can be about that fully. And one more thing that I will say is this. I have no sort of corporate financing, and I've adamantly opposed that. Even some of the special interests. And I'll say this, my campaign managers over here, my staff, they always tell me, people come to us with money. They say, Reuben, we love what you stand for, but here's my PAC. This is what we're about, and this is how we want to support you. But my whole issue here is that there's such a disproportionate influence that special interests and corporations have on the
There are strings attached to that money.
Yeah, there's always strings attached.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm an open book. There was a doctor who contacted us from California, not even from Nevada. He said, Reuben, I'm going to donate tens of thousands of dollars into your campaign. All I want you to do is to work with me on working on certain visas from doctors who are coming from South Asia, from Nigeria, these different countries. I immediately just ended that conversation right then and there, because this is first and foremost, it's low key a bribe.
Right.
And then secondly,
and it's pay to play.
It's pay to play.
Right.
The understanding was that if I contribute to your campaign, this was going to happen. This has happened time and time and time again to myself, and I know it happens to everybody else.
Sure.
in the game. It's just part and parcel of what happens.
Right.
So to me, I don't endeavor in any of that. To me, you got to stay clean. You got to stay free and clear of special interests. and especially big donating interests like the corporate entities who have such they can donate unlimited amounts because of the Citizens United decision. So again, it makes it more difficult for us to raise money, but on the same token, we are 100% organic.
Right.
That's the buzzword that I'm going to be going back to, I think, over the next several months. Organic. I respond to the people who donate $20 to my campaign, who donate $50, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of these people, hundreds of these people. It's much easier to then identify a general pattern as to what they want me to do, so I can serve as a great voice for them in Washington. And again, I think that the greatest moral issue facing our politics today is that disproportionate influence that money has played in our politics. And if you look at Dina Titus, she's taken tens of thousands of dollars from unions, from special interests. And again, it's fine and dandy. I'm a supporter of unions, of the labor movement, of some of the special interests that are donating to Titus. But on the same token, I'm not going to be bossed by them. If there comes a point where their interests are not in keeping with the interests of my constituents, I can tell them flat out, there's no way that I'm going to be voting for this, and I don't care what you have to say about it because you haven't donated $20,000, $10,000 to my campaign. And we have to get back to that sort of a way of representing our constituents first and foremost, and then the special interests. And I'm all about that. That's a big issue with me.
One of my favorite governors was Kenny Gwynn. Mm-hmm. And I remember how he actually ran for governor. That was like a 2-year campaign. It was like the billboards were everywhere, and it was just very, very intense. Then as soon as as a Republican, as soon as he got into office, he just basically said, too bad for all of you, I'm a Nevadan. And people were like really shocked because he had run and gotten all this money and gotten all this support as a Republican. He said, no, now that I'm elected, I'm going to do what's best for the citizens of Nevada. And nobody took it seriously at first until he started, going totally against a lot of the main planks of the Republican Party that he basically never agreed with. He was like, I just need to get into office so I can make the change. And that's exactly what he did.
Yep.
Yeah, I was very, very impressed by that.
Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to Kenny Gwynn and the Millennium Scholarship, which I benefited from big time. If it wasn't for the Millennium, I'd be in debt a lot more than what I am right now in terms of my college debt. But again, it was something that he fought for. As a Republican. He made sure that the education had its was funded properly, and the Millennium Scholarship, I think, was one of the greatest boost really for so many of us who graduated during that after the passage of the Millennium Scholarship. It really made a career and a college opportunity very available to a kid from Northtown like myself who was on free lunch in high school.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back with more of Reuben De Silva. He is a Democrat running for Congressional District 1.
Crazy Terry here with your car care tip of the day. So it's not a bad idea every now and then to check your battery. If you don't know how to do it, have somebody check it for you. Just a visual inspection can tell you a lot about your battery. So as we can see here, this battery's got a hold down. It's nice and tight. The cables are on. They don't look bad. We've got a cover. We don't see any corrosion. Everything's kind of tight, looking good. A little bit of dirt, that's normal, but nothing's leaking. No real cause for alarm here. So that's a good sign. Doesn't mean it's good, but at least visually we know that it's intact. Okay, so we're looking at a battery here that shows signs of corrosion. We want to test that battery to make sure it's good. Usually when they're getting like this, there's going to be a problem, leaking some acid at the top. We ran the test and we find out it has 396 cold cranking amps, but the battery requires 650. So it's just not enough. The battery is going to go soon. Better to know now than later. Okay, so the benefits of checking the cable is because this cable's rotted out. What we'll find is this is the problem, not the battery. So it'll save you from buying a battery, still having the nose start, only to find out that it's a cable. This type of corrosion is common in diesels. Okay, so we're getting ready to jump the car, but we have to have some battery cables. And we have to check those too before we hook them up to the battery. So here we have our standard set of battery cables. We just look them over, see if the ends are frayed, if everything's connected all right. Everything looks good here. Wouldn't hurt to check the rest of the cable just to make sure the dog didn't get it and chew it up. We have red and black. Red's positive, black's negative. You always want to hook the positive up first and then the negative. And I'll show you how that's done right now. Keep these off to the side so they're not touching each other. Hook up your positive. You can find that right here by the plus sign, the negative sign. Plus is positive, red. Make sure that's securely hooked up. Keeping these away from each other. hook up your negative cable. Just got to fight it on there, figure out a way to get it, wiggle it a little bit so it ensures a good connection. Now you're transferring voltage. If I hit these two together, we're going to spark. Kind of want to avoid that. Won't kill you. Kind of fun. A lot of people think if they can turn the headlights on, the battery's fine. That's not always the case. It takes very little amperage to turn a light on, but it takes a lot of amperage to start the starter. I recommend checking the charging system every oil change. At Sun Valley Automotive, there's never a charge for that. This is Crazy Terry with your car care tip of the day.
And we are back with Reuben De Silva, who is a Democrat running for Congressional District 1. So let's talk about some social issues. You mentioned in the last segment, you're talking about immigration, sexual issues, social issues are a very big thing right now. But the Democratic Party as a whole on a national level doesn't really seem to be embracing these issues or really championing these issues as you seem to personally want to.
Oh yeah. I think especially the immigration issue. I'm glad that you that we're talking about this. I felt as if that immigration has been used as a wedge issue by the Democrats for a long time. We had ample opportunities to get something passed, but on the same token, we haven't seen it happen. And this is more than a decade now that this conversation has been going on. And I think that the Democratic Party just needs to be a little bit more vociferous and just more aggressive in pursuing this. Instead of giving us lip service, let's get out there and mobilize and organize in dramatic ways, not just the ways that we're doing it right now in order to get this message out there and to get a DREAM Act passed, a clean DREAM Act. But in the end, again, the end goal is comprehensive immigration reform. It's a long time a long time coming. We know that the vast majority of Americans support immigration reform. Right. They want to see these millions of people who are undocumented come out of the shadows and participate in our economy and our society. So again, I'm going to be a strong voice for this movement because it's what I've lived. I've been through that experience. I was undocumented in this country. I know what it feels like to be in the shadows. I know what it feels like to have a letter or a phone call come in saying that your mom is going to be slated for deportation. And I remember back then, I know that Democrats have evolved, since then, but we went to Democratic senators, at the time, and they said they don't help illegal immigrants. This is what was the letter that was sent back to my dad when he went to this particular senator. But the other Democratic senator at the time did take on our case, and my mom was able to, it was granted a stay, and today she's a citizen. My mom is a school teacher. She teaches elementary school. She's a very productive member of our society. She was a Sunday school teacher at St. Christopher's Church, and she has thousands and thousands of kids who are out there who she's personally, affected in a very strong and a very positive way. So that's what I'm talking about. There's millions of these stories out there, and the potentials for these stories. So again, I think that the Democratic Party can be a much stronger voice, a much stronger champion for immigration reform, and I'm hoping that we can see it happen here soon, even before I get to Congress. We at least see some sort of a DREAM Act passed here.
I've never really understood the our national divide over immigration because none of us started out here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I used to love it when I was going to Rancho when we were going through that whole Black Pride movement, and people would say, "I went back to Africa." I was like, but you're from Riverside. You're not going back to Africa. You're from Riverside. You're an American citizen now. What are you talking about? And why are we talking about this in terms of, well, we got to keep these people from coming? None of us started out here except for the Native Americans.
Yeah.
We all came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I've always thought that was just a specious argument.
It is a very it doesn't stand. In the end, we're all from somewhere else.
Right.
This is a nation of immigrants. John Kennedy wrote a book. It was published after he was assassinated. Actually, it's called "A Nation of Immigrants," and he talks about how the immigrants have constantly been a part of our society here,
right,
and they've always made our society a stronger society, a more diverse society, a more robust society.
Right.
And there's another important. He's a writer for the New York Times, Howard Fineman. He wrote a book called "The 13 American Arguments." And one of these, and he talks about these perennial issues that we have in this country from the founding all the way until today, and he identifies immigration as one of them. And he says that whenever you see a large ratio percentage of non-native born Americans, you're going to see this flare up and become a big national issue. He talked about the nativist movement in the 19th century, during the late 1800s and the early 1900s, when you see a large influx of Eastern and Southern Europeans coming here, folks from Italy, folks from Poland, the Slavic countries,
right.
so on and so
the
forth.
The waves of immigrants.
And then you see legislation that's passed. In California, it was the Asian community, the Chinese, who are coming down over here, and you have the first national act. It's called the Chinese Exclusion Act to pretty much ban folks from East Asia to come to the United States. You see the same thing with the Nationality Acts in 1920, banning people categorically. So we're faced with that again. Now you see that I should say from 1920 up until 65, when the Immigration Act of 1965 was passed through LBJ's administration. You see that America was tempered. There wasn't as much of an influx of immigrants here. You start seeing a moderation. You start seeing the creation of the whole melting pot and all of that. I mean, those things are going on. Those arguments. We can argue back and forth about what that term means. I'm more of the salad bowls guy. But then again, now you see an influx of immigration in 65, and then again in 85 with the Reagan's immigration reform. So now we're at a time in our country where we have again about 1/6 of our country, roughly anywhere from 12 to 15% is not native born, and you can see those tensions rising again. Who's an American? What constitutes an American? Who should be granted American citizenship? Should we have a tiered system here where these undocumented folks can be brought in as legal residents, but have to remain non-citizens for the rest of their lives, which I don't support at all. I think we need a pathway to citizenship for everybody. So this is again one of those crucial moments in American history where we ask ourselves that question: are we the nation that can open its arms up and bring these folks in and accept them as our fellow American citizens, our brethren, our brothers and sisters? And of course, I'm on the notion that yes, we not just yes we can, but yes we have to. Because what is more American than allowing the outsider to come in, giving them the opportunity to adapt our values, adapt our culture, pledge allegiance to the Constitution, and say that this is my country, and I'm willing to work and to fight for this country just as you are. It doesn't matter where I was born, where I came from, but I love this country as much as you. So that idea of naturalization, that idea of a pathway to citizenship is very, very important to me. It's how we bring immigrants into our community and also allow them to become a part of that established American identity. So hopefully we can see that happen here soon. It's such a perennial problem, such a perennial issue. It's been going on for a long time. I think the Democrats can be much more aggressive, can be much more vibrant really in making this a top tier issue, and it'll be one of my main real focus points if I'm elected to the House of Representatives.
I just recently read an op-ed piece that said that made the point that the Republicans seem to have sort of hijacked being patriotic, proud to be an American. It's like, okay, so how did that become equated with being a Republican? And I just kind of thought that the Democrats didn't really answer that either. It's sort of like all of a sudden now, if you're flying the flag, you must be a Republican. Yeah. And how did that happen? And why wasn't that challenged?
I think that's happened in more recent times. I think the Vietnam War has a lot to do with this.
And also I want to point out that he is a history teacher, and he knows his stuff, right?
Yeah, try to at least, But I think you look at the Democrats even before the 1960s. I mean, you had some war heroes as the leaders of this party. John Kennedy, Purple Heart recipient, NAM recipient. I mean, he went out to the South Pacific. His ship was hit by a Japanese destroyer, cut in two. He jumps out into the oceans. Straps an injured guy on his back. They swim for hours and then they get rescued later on. I mean, this is a war hero. You look at Eisenhower, who was a Democrat before he became a Republican and ran for president. LBJ. I mean, all these folks who served in the military. So we have a track record of very patriotic Americans. John Kerry, who I think was done very unfairly in the 2004 election. This is a war hero, a patriotic American. Got 3 Purple Hearts. Went to Vietnam. Served on those swift boats. But he was categorized as an unpatriotic American because he spoke out against the war. But again, he's a war hero in my eyes. I met him while I was at Yale, a grad student there. And we had I had a great conversation with him about this exact same matter. So I think there's this understanding out there that progressives, that Democrats, we're not as patriotic as Republicans because we don't embrace probably this idea that in the end, you have to have military action to resolve some of our problems, and for America to exert its power globally, it has to be done to some sort of a military means or some sort of a military action based way. But that's not how it's always been. I think a lot of the folks who were siding with for the pro-war folks ended up becoming were Republicans at the time, and that real militant embracing of that ideology is something that's transcended since the late 60s into today's era. But on the same token, it's not about just having some sort of a military or defense approach to governing world matters. I think the United States of America is great enough. You can look at our economy, you can look at our diplomatic endeavors around the world. That's what we should be focused on. I remember Barack Obama, I think it was during the 2008 election, he gave a speech. It may have even been his victory speech, and he said something about the greatness of a country isn't in regards to its war-making capabilities or its ability to dictate to smaller and weaker countries, how to mandate themselves. It's about our goodness. It's about lending a hand of partnership. It's about showing the world that we can work together and make not just our own countries great, but the whole world great together, humanity. Right. So I think that's where America should show leadership, and that's patriotic.
Yeah.
I'll be real with you. This, a lot of people out here complaining about athletes taking a knee, or people who want to protest.
How do you feel about that?
I think I fought in Iraq for democracy and for the freedom of expression, and for somebody to say that you can't express yourself politically, and that's actually disrespectful. I think it's completely not in keeping with our values. Colin Kaepernick, he's taking a knee. He's not disrespecting the flag. He's not talking to somebody or just giving some sort of gesture to the flag, saying I'm not happy with this country, and making himself very angry. He's taking a knee. And I played 3 sports in high school: soccer, basketball, track and field. Whenever somebody was injured, we always took a knee. It's a sign of respect. So for Colin Kaepernick and all these other athletes in the NFL who are taking a knee during the pledge, I think again, it's their opportunity, their real freedom to express themselves and to express themselves in probably one of our most sacred arenas, which is political expression.
Right.
So I think it's a good thing. And we should allow those folks to actually get out there and express themselves, and not to hinder them. So when I hear a lot of my friends on the far right say that this is disrespectful, I'll tell you one thing: I went to Iraq, to bring democracy to a people. If Saddam Hussein would probably say something like, how dare you get on your knee when the national anthem is being played. I can't see an American doing the same thing. In America, we respect the ability to express oneself and to express themselves politically, especially. And again, that's my real standing on it. If you want to express yourself by taking a knee during an anthem, that is your right. I stand. I pledge. I put my hand on my heart. But if somebody else doesn't want to, that doesn't mean that I have to say, "How dare you?" That's not American. That individual has the right to express themselves in whatever way that they can. I can have a conversation with them,
right,
but I shouldn't. You can't ban it.
Right. One of the things, as a member of the media, I've been watching and just kind of fascinated by was the initial knee-jerk reaction that a lot of mainstream media had to Donald Trump and the tweets. And so now there's this almost like this pushback of how dare you tweet, but this is America.
Yeah.
It's just because no other president did it, and really social media wasn't really a factor. I think it really was it was a big factor in Barack Obama's campaign, but that mostly in terms of money. But no other president has actually had the power to tweet. He actually has that platform now exists, and so I'm just kind of tickled by how he'll tweet something and then the media goes crazy, and it's like, well, you guys, but that's part of what it is to be in America. You can, if you don't want to read what the man's tweeting, delete him from your account. But I think that's another issue that we're running into, is this almost another divide in this country. It's like, you can't say it. I'm going to be mad at you if you say something that I disagree with, instead of saying, let me listen to what you have to say. Because I always tell people, from my standpoint, my opinion is only based on the information I have at this second.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell me something and I can say, I never thought about that. And I can change my mind. I think it's important and mature for politicians to be able to say,
oh yeah,
I used to think that way, but I don't think that way anymore, and I've changed my mind. Yeah.
I remember going to school, college, and one of my first history classes. There was the professor got up there. This is at a CSN, and said that history is a liberal art, and one of the greatest things about this classroom is that oftentimes you may come in here with one viewpoint on something, and then walk out of this classroom with a totally different vantage point, maybe even the total opposite vantage point, and that's the freedom of expression at play.
Right.
That you can have a conversation with somebody and look at an issue or a topic from a different perspective, and even be swayed by it.
Right.
So that's, I think, important. I think we've actually lost that sense of communicating with one another. All we do is yell at each other in this country, the left and the right and the left, so on and so forth. And there's no real discourse.
Right.
A debate is one thing. That's but a discourse is an extended back and forth where we talk about ideas, we talk about issues, we talk about topics, and we have an exchange. And that's crucial for democracy. If we can't have that sort of an environment, I think this country is going on a very divisive path.
Yeah.
And we have to do all that we can to foster more opportunities to have a back and forth. Like I'm campaigning right now, and I'm out there in the field. I'm going to all these different events, participating
You just had.
in them.
Let's talk about the town hall that you just had, because one of the things I'd love to see you in action is that kind of interaction. Even if somebody disagrees with you, and that was so obvious to me at the event that I was at, you never lose your cool. You're like, okay, well, I see where you're coming from, but let me tell you what I have to say about it. And I just find that so refreshing. The other thing that I find refreshing too is you back your stands up with information. I think you're right. We're doing a lot of yelling at each other now. People are like emotionally responding without actually having some solid information. I mean, it's like, well, so why do you think what you think?
It's how I was brought up. I'm a history teacher. I was somebody who was not a citizen of this country, but I was always told time and time again, by my dad, by my mom, that you're living in the greatest democracy in the world, a real democracy. My family comes from India, which is the largest democracy in the world, by the way. But there's a lot of corruption, a lot of it's not working out properly. But for some reason, we seem to have got it right here. And they always reminded me that you have to participate, and by participating, you have to get out there and oftentimes have discussions and interact and engage with people who don't agree with you, but you have to remain respectful, you have to remain civil, you have to have that back and forth. It was something that my father in particular was very very keen on. So you can have a staunch view on something. Like I'm a big proponent of universal health care and free college, so on and so forth. I'm a Keynesian, economic, guy at my basis. But I can have a conversation with somebody who's a libertarian who believes in free markets, and then we can talk about the real value of, say, a universal health care system and lowering the GDP, even maybe even bringing down the debt of this country. But again, it has to be fact based.
Right.
And but that's what I've always been about. I think that we have to go back to that model. I'll say one thing about some of the political environment here in this town. We don't really have opportunities where Democrats and Republicans come together in a town hall setting and have these conversations. It's usually a candidate, a U.S. senator, Democrat, or a governor, Republican. And they have these events, and it's all Republicans at these events, or it's all Democrats.
Everybody's preaching to the choir.
They're preaching to the choir. There's no fostering of an engagement with the other side. That is, even in the last election, we had one debate. We had the U.S. Senate debate between Joe Heck and Catherine Cortez Masto. That was good. We need to see both sides having that sort of a engagement with one another. We didn't see one in the CD3 race. We didn't see one in the CD4 race, which were competitive, very competitive, and we didn't see one this time around in District 1. There were three candidates there. Myself, Dina Titus, Mary Perry was a Republican, and there was not one debate. And we asked for one. The Titus folks didn't hit us back. I think it's extremely important at the primary level for Dina Titus and myself to have some sort of debate, some sort of town hall where we're both present in front of the voters, and they can hear from both of us.
Right.
And again, I'm inviting Dina Titus right now to a debate. If you're out there listening, we would really like to see this happen. Again, don't hamper democracy. Let's get a town hall. Let's get a debate. Let's get an opportunity for the voters to see myself and you, Congresswoman, in a debate setting, in a forum setting, in a town hall setting, something where we can actually be in front of the voters who are going to put us into that office come 2018. It is the right thing to do. It's a democratic thing to do, and it is something that we need in this community more so now than ever. So we need more of that here.
You just heard of that, and you guys can come back together, and you can both be on Las Vegas.
I am totally cool with that.
At the same time. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Retrospects is a purveyor, if you will, of historical eyewear. Retrospects is located on the second floor, right across from the chandelier bar. So when you look at our store from the outside, it looks like there isn't much going on in here. And then you open the drawers. We actually carry authentic pieces from the late 1890s to the 1990s. We have almost 3,000 pieces in here. It's like a treasure trove reveal. We do have a collection of new glasses that we have reproduced ourselves. It's called the Cuthbert and Chen collection. The safe is our jewel. It's our baby. We love it. It's from 1903. It weighs as much as a car. It's solid steel. We use the safe to hold our most precious pieces, our museum collection, if you will. People come in to find glasses that are not something they're going to find everywhere else. Not something all their friends are wearing, and something that they can tell that story. We sell stories as much as we sell glasses. We have pieces that we can associate with very famous people from history, movies, special events that happened in the past. And some of the favorites are the Ray-Ban shooter that Johnny Depp wore in Fear and Loathing of Las Vegas, the beautiful frame France Parisian plastic aviator worn by Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. Retrospects is not just about glasses. It's about the experience. It's about how these glasses make you feel. We are a full-service optical shop, somewhere where guests can come to get repairs, restoration, can put their prescription in, can get them a quick pair of sunglasses for the pool, and can give them a really great, just fun experience.
One of the things I love about Reuben too is he's sort of like the only person who's ever been as just blunt about anything, will not shy away from controversy, is former Mayor Oscar Goodman.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what you ask this man, he will talk about it.
Good old Oscar. Yeah.
So the big thing happening with the Democrats now, after one of the prominent Democrat came out so against Ray Moore and talking bad about all the Republicans who've had all of their sexual escapades put out there, was to wake up and find that Al Franken was out there now, and he's apologizing. But there is, once again, social media. These women are all coming out of the woodwork now because there was no way to tell the story. Almost all of these women, these stories that I'm reading, everybody thought that they were the only one. So one woman would maybe tell her girlfriend or tell her husband or whatever. But now, because of social media, people are saying, well, gosh, Al Franken touched me too, or this one touched me too. And so it's almost like it's brought that conversation to the national level of how do we treat each other as human beings? I mean, I really think it goes beyond just like male, female, but how do we treat each other as human beings? How did it become okay to sexually harass someone or use power over them in a work or social situation?
Oh, first, it's never okay. I mean, this is it's a major problem in our society. It's there's the statistics out there that say that 1 out of 4 women in America has been sexually assaulted, or harassed aggressively. And it is a problem, and you're right about this. We didn't really have the mechanisms to actually promote these stories, especially when it was a person in power who was doing this.
Yeah, who would believe you? Yeah,
who would believe you? And it was also stigmatized.
Right.
I know that in certain cultures out there, it's really seen as if a woman was assaulted or raped, that it was the woman's fault, that and it was all because of her. But that's completely not true. We know that it's not true.
Right.
The aggressor is always the person who is committing the assault or committing the rape or committing the harassment. So I think that our society is moving into that direction where we are now embracing that model, that notion now that it's never the victim's fault. It's always it's the fault of the aggressor. And on the second token, now we have opportunities for people to tell their stories.
Yeah.
Especially with the advent of digital media, social media, so on and so forth. You can get out there and you can put something to the press, put something out there to the public, saying that this happened to me. Like the whole Me Too movement that's taking place right now is an excellent example. So I'm glad that this is happening. It's a big problem. It's something that people used to be able to hide back in the day, but you can't do it anymore.
Right.
So and this is, again, we've seen this is something that's affecting both Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
It's something that's
So
affecting
now
everybody.
Neither side can take the high ground because neither side has the high ground.
Taking the high ground is embracing now the fact that this does happen,
right,
and it has to be spoken out prominently and very strongly against. I'll say something. I went to college. I was a president of my fraternity, and we know that a large portion of sexual assault, even rapes in this country happen in these environments. In these college settings, and we had a problem. With our parties and women being harassed, aggressively assaulted, so on and so forth. And we had a policy that if this took place, the minute a victim came to us and said that this person is being aggressive, this person is having some sort of trying to do something to me, we would kick them out. It would not be in a nice way. Right. And we have to be aggressively deal with these sort of problems in that manner. I'm very hopeful and optimistic. I think that we are, in this regard in particular, moving into the right direction. The fact that that nobody seems to be able to hide from this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's something, again, that will serve as a check, I think, going into the next several years here for people in power specifically to not abuse that power and to again understand that sexual harassment, sexual assault is never okay in any given regard. Right. There's no way you can defend against it. It's something that should be strongly castigated, and it has no place in our society and in our country.
I just recently read that there's a special fund in Congress that is just that they just pay settlements. It's all taxpayer money, but if you come to them and you say I've been sexually harassed, then they write you a check. If you come to them and say I've been discriminated against, then they write you a check. And when I read that, I thought, how long has that been going on that we the taxpayers are paying for someone's bad behavior directly out of our money that we send to Congress? Yeah, it was just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's public settings, private settings for sure. I know I've heard about companies that have these allocated funds for stuff like this. It just goes to show you again how deep of a problem it is in our culture, in our society. And again, it's we have to work against it. I think we have to talk about it more in our classrooms, in our to young people. We don't get an opportunity to do that as much because of certain rules and regulations that we have. Right. That it's a real deal, it's a real problem, and that there are avenues to actually talk to people if it does happen to you. If you feel that this is an overly aggressive person that's talking to you, you're talking to you in a very disrespectful way. You've said no, you're trying to push them away, but they're still pursuing you. I've seen it happen. I'm a school teacher. I see it happen all the time. And I always tell those folks, hey, look, you have somebody to talk to me, let me know, and I'll go and make sure this is handled. Right. And I have done that in the past, and it's something that I will continue to do. We need to have these conversations. I think we tend to have them a little bit later on in life. Right. But again, as somebody who works with young people, we got to start talking to these
away.
These kids,
because I think a lot of what happens is especially for girls. They don't even realize that this is not okay. When somebody's like, touching you. I remember a guy coming up behind me and starting to rub my shoulders. I didn't ask for a back rub. So it's like, would you step off? Yeah. But my parents, they had these conversations with us when we were little. So you don't let somebody touch you. It's unless you give them permission. Yeah. So, but these conversations, you're right. These are the conversations we need to have with our young people now, so that they don't grow up and all of a sudden, they've got this boss who they think is, I should just let this go.
Yeah, I was just chaperoning the homecoming dance at my high school where I'm teaching at Rancho High School, And that's interesting that you mentioned this. I remember this guy, you know, there was a girl, and she was just talking to her friends, and he goes over there and just grabs her and starts dancing on her, you know. And I went over there to address that. I was like, hey, look, young man, did you ask her if you could dance with her, you know?
Right.
And he's just like, no, but she was looking good, and I wanted to go over, you know. I was like, you know, I said, stop right there. You know,
that's it.
You don't do that.
Right.
You know, be gentlemanly. Go over there, you know, tap her on the shoulder, make face contact,
right.
You know, and then say, hey, man, can I have a dance with you? Do you want to dance? Okay. You know, because again, and that's something that I myself, as a school teacher, especially when I go and chaperone some of these environments where, you know, you see a lot of this happening, I immediately address that, especially with my young men. It happens all the time, and I keep an eye out for it, and I will always use that as a learning opportunity for that individual.
Now, as you're going out into the community right now, what are the top, because we got 5 minutes left, what are the top issues that the people on the street, not at the national level, not at what the Democrats or the Republicans are talking about, but when you run into someone at Walmart, what are people saying to you on the campaign trail?
A big one is just wages. You know, in this country, you know, there's I live in a pretty economically depressed part of the district. You know, it's where the 89030, 89101, 89104, the zip codes come together. You know, we know that 89101 is the most socioeconomically disadvantaged zip code in the state of Nevada. And that's really where I'm at. And so, I was just at the 99-cent store today, and I ran into a friend of mine, Cornell McCrary, who's very active in the Democratic Party. And I saw him there, and we just chit-chatted about how, you know, it's crazy that this you know, he's seeing his guy running in his district, running for Congress at the 99-cent store. But that's who I am. Right. You know, and those are the environments that I'm constantly around. You know, my neighbors, you know, my students, you know, my colleagues. And there's a real concern about wages. You know, first and foremost, I think that in order to address that, we need to see an increase in the minimum wage. It is $7.25 an hour is just not cutting it. We need to raise that threshold so we can have a more just wage, in the economic environment in this country. So I'm going to be very much pushing for an increase in the minimum wage. My take on it is that, you know, I think we need a flat threshold of $12 an hour, and if your company or business is more lucrative, making more money, it's a larger business, I think we can debate the details there. Then the $15 minimum wage should be mandated there. There was the data that I'm really going off of. There was a paper that was written in 2011, 2012, I want to say, where you had these Nobel laureates, these economists, some of the most brilliant minds in this country. They talked about how the minimum wage increase would actually be a great spurt to the economy. Would allow the economy to grow. You know, you would bring money back into the hands of working folks who could then spend that money and re-energize the economy. So we know that we need a minimum wage increase, and I'm hoping that we can come together as a Congress, have the courage to first and foremost embrace this real data-driven information, policy here, and make it happen.
Well, this comes back to what you were talking about. Who are the people who are fighting the minimum wage? The big corporations who don't want to see their profit margin go down at all, and they're talking about all the disastrous things that could happen if they have to pay people more money.
Oh yeah.
But you're exactly right. Now you've got more money in your pocket to spend.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that goes back. It's not like anybody's going to get on a plane and go somewhere else. You know, they're going to go to the 99-cent store, or buy a house or buy a car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, with the more money in the hands of working class folks, the better it is going to be. And we're not talking about exorbitant sums now. We're just talking about, a couple $100, a couple $1,000 over the course of a year. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, people like Steve Wynn, these big, casino moguls out there and everything. I think, if you work at the Wynn, and if you work it in any capacity there, you should be paid $15 an hour. If you work at a Walmart, you should be paid $15 an hour. Again, this is just the right thing to do. We have so much wealth, compounded at the upper echelons of our socioeconomic strata, and we see that even over the last 6 years since we've been coming out of the recession, that all new earned income is going into the top income brackets, and we're not seeing any sort of wages going up in the bottom echelons. So what that means is that we have to come up with a new policy in order to again make it more equitable. I think the minimum wage increase is one way. I'm a strong opponent of this new tax plan, especially with this notion that the corporate tax rate should be brought down to 20%. I think we've had this debate already, this discussion. This trickle-down ideology doesn't really work because it's more of a choice then for that business entity. Okay, you're getting a tax break, but are you going to reinvest that money into your workers, into programs that benefit them, into wages? I think for the most part, it's a resounding no. You see.
Well, we saw that with the bailout.
Yeah.
So the banks just took that money and said, "Oh, thank you very much, and we're just going to sit on it," and it didn't benefit their workers.
Oh yeah,
it just kept them from going out of business.
Oh yeah, what they'll do is probably reinvest it, buy shares into the company, expand their the amount of shares that they have. Probably increase the dividends, so on and so forth for that class of shareholders now who can really bank.
And once again, the money is
get all the money.
right
Yeah,
there, right.
So that's what we see, and we know what's going to happen. So again, what's more responsible here now is having a policy that actually first and foremost benefits the working class, the middle class, and the poor in this country. My real take on any sort of economic policy, any sort of real act or amendment that I'm going to be a part of as a congressman is first and foremost, how does it benefit the lowest among us, the weakest among us, the most marginal among us, the poorest among us. And if there's a law now that benefits the top 80%, but it hurts them, then that law to me is unjust, and it's not right for a country as great as the United States of America to endeavor in something like that. So again, my focus is very much laser focused on the middle class, the working class, and the poor, and that's who we need to see benefit. We know that if the middle class is doing well, then the country does well. I tell my students oftentimes the great revolutions that we've seen in the course of human history, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the Mexican Revolution of 1910, they're all due to the fact that there wasn't a strong middle class in any of those environments. When the middle class does well, the middle class is happy, the middle class is prosperous, then the whole country is happy, the whole country is prosperous. And that's where we need to focus our efforts, strengthening the middle class. And again, really, we have to do all that we can now to avoid this real divide that's taking place between the wealthy and everybody else. Wealth inequality is will be a tremendously devastating problem to this country, and we haven't even begun to see what its effects are, and it's not going to be anything good. You want to see a violent revolution? Let the income divide, let the wealth divide become greater. Then we'll see what's taking place in Venezuela, what took place in France in the 1700s, what took place in Mexico in 1910, what took place in Russia, and then with the dawn of communism, so on and so forth. Let's deal with this problem now when we can actually solve it, instead of letting it fester decades from now and having that sort of a violent revolution, which will happen. History teaches us this.
Well, I am so glad that you've been on today, and I'm just excited for your campaign.
Thank you. I'm very excited too.
Congresswoman Dina Titus, you did get the shout out right here from Reuben De Silva. If you'd like to get together for a debate or just get together on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese, we welcome all of that. So thank you. Good luck on your campaign.
Thank you, Rikki.
And thank you for joining us.
And I have to say one thing about Rikki. I grew up watching Rikki on TV. She was like a star to me. She was like one of the few, I'll just be real, one of the few people of color out there representing, on Channel 3 back when I was a little kid. I think the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air would come on, and then they would go off, and then I think the afternoon news would start, and there was Rikki Cheese. And it's really a great honor to be sitting here with you and doing this interview with you.
Well, I'm honored to have you here too, because I'm very excited about your campaign. I've seen you at work in the classroom. I've seen you at work in the community, and I just think that you're just a fresh, breath of fresh air being brought into politics. So let's see how.
Thank you, Rikki. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you for joining us on Live Las Vegas with Rikki Cheese.